Greetings, everybody. Welcome to our first Parks hybrid meeting. What could go wrong? Right, are we recording? Great. So I would like to call the meeting to order. It is.
Does anyone have any idea what that noise is?
It's the person who's calling in on the phone number.
If you, can someone mute everybody?
Yeah, at the bottom, just at the very bottom, there's a mute all.
Yeah, there's a button, mute all.
Yeah, you have to mute all.
So hit yes.
Right, everybody, can you hear me now?
I think we also muted ourselves.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear us? Okay, that's great.
Good, thank you.
Sorry. All right, it's 7:06. We're going to call the meeting to order. I'm Deb Travis, the chair of Community Board 8's Parks and Recreation Committee. As a Community Board committee, we loosely follow Robert's Rules of Order. We will be following the agenda that was previously distributed. If we open a topic to general discussion, we ask that if you would like to speak, that you raise your hand, and I will call on you. Same goes for in here. Our goal is to have a good, robust discussion of our agenda items. However, if we have a lot of people who would like to speak on any individual topic, you may only get to speak once, so make sure to make it count. If you're not speaking, we ask that you keep yourself muted to prevent background noise from interrupting others, like we just experienced. If you're on Zoom, to raise your hand, you will select reactions at the bottom, and you'll see raise your hand as an option. If you're on the phone, it is *6. It's a toggle, *6 to mute and unmute, and *9 to raise your hand or to lower your hand. So I'll start with a roll call. Bob Mender.
Yep.
David Gelman is not here yet, but he said he's on his way. Rob Jaklowski is here. Ramdad is here. And Leona.
Hi.
Bob Panuzzi, are you on the call? Panuzzi?
I didn't see Bob in the attendance.
All right, so other board members. I see Chair Laura Spalter. See Ed Green. See
Lisa Dahl. No, she's not a board member.
She's not a board anymore. Got it, Bob?
Okay.
All right, so who is here from agencies?
They can do it themselves.
They should be able to unmute, or just raise your hand.
Yeah, let them know they're muted.
I see Sabina there.
Hi, good evening.
Welcome. Mike Ortiz.
You're doing agency, sorry.
I see Vlad Cruz.
Catherine on.
I saw Catherine.
Yeah, I'm here.
iPhone, I see your hand is raised. Who are you?
Captain Soror is here from the NYPD, 50th Precinct.
Welcome, thank you.
My Special Operations Lieutenant, Lieutenant Baez, is also on.
Hello.
Hi, Lieutenant, thank you for joining us.
No problem.
I see Christina Taylor.
Christina Taylor and Stephanie.
Stephanie Ehrlich from the Alliance.
Hi.
Hello. What about, is there anybody from PEP? Parks Enforcement Patrol?
You are unmuted.
Carl Vetter. Hi, Carl.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Guys, Mike Ortiz down?
Yeah, Mike. Oh, Vlad. Everybody. Anybody else I met? I see somebody's here from
Maybe it's me.
Member Denowitz's office, is that Jesse?
Yes, it is.
From
Welcome, hello. Jenna? Who?
Yes, hello. Councilman Denwood, Councilman Denwood.
Do you get the community affairs officer?
Yeah, that's Officer Sala.
Oh, Officer Sal, okay. Let me get Jenna. Who is
And
Jenna?
Lieutenant Baez as well.
It was Jenna is with, hey, David. Jenna Clouds with a K, I said down. Community Affairs Officer.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Herb. Hey, Herb. Community Affairs Officer Sessa?
Officer Sala, how you doing?
Oh, Caesar Sala, there we go. It's cut off over on the side, so thank you for your patience.
No problem.
Stephanie, I'm looking for your
Video?
email. I can't find you.
That is everybody, okay.
E.H. Ehrlich? Okay, Ehrlich.
Herb, if you need somebody's email, you can get it from the office in the morning. So I want to get started with the meeting. The first thing I think is the approval of the minutes of May 24th, 2023, which were distributed to the committee members ahead of the meeting. Does anybody on the committee have any changes? If there are no objections, I move to approve the minutes by unanimous consent. All right, so moved. So Chair's report. I just have three quick items. The first is that as part of Mayor Adams' Charge Safe, Ride Safe electric micro-mobility action plan, e-bikes and electric scooters are now allowed to ride on park drives and greenways.
I'm backing out.
Who's this? Is that Herb? Okay. So e-bikes and electric scooters are allowed to be on greenways through May 31st, 2024. So essentially for the next year, there's a pilot. We'll discuss this more, I'm sure, during our first agenda item about public safety. Outdoor pools in the parks are now open daily from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a break for cleaning from 3 to 4. The mini pools will be open through Labor Day, and the Olympic and intermediate-sized pools will remain open through Sunday, September 10th. The Van Cortlandt Golf Course. It's been 2 months since we met with the concessions unit to discuss, and the concessionaire at the Van Cortlandt Golf Course. And I'm pleased to say that they've opened the fencing at the birding bridge. It looks really great, almost inviting, I would say, or maybe inviting if I want to be so bold. It's obviously much easier for hikers to get through and to the span over the wetlands. They've also posted their hours and they've removed the plywood, so the golf house is looking better. And I look forward to just kind of following up with them over the summer on the greenway and getting the pavement patched there.
Where? Is there a problem with the greenway pavement?
Yeah, the area of the they're not on the Putnam Greenway, the greenway that's adjacent to their parking lot that runs over to underneath the overpass is the entrance to the golf course.
The golf,
the thing that goes around, yeah, that piece has been washed out.
I would have been shocked if the greenway, that was so densely paved.
Yeah, no, the Putnam is okay. We'll start off with our first agenda item, which is just a discussion of summer park safety. So prior to the pandemic, our city parks had faced issues such as large gatherings, ground fires, barbecues without permit or in improper places, drinking, public urination, and just kind of widespread litter. The pandemic made these issues worse and brought more misbehavior from people in cars and dirt bikes. I know Van Cortlandt Park Alliance, PEP, 50th Precinct, our elected officials, and the Bronx Borough Commissioner's Office have all been, meeting to discuss this. We've certainly been getting a lot of inquiries from folks in the community. So I wanted to just open this up to the folks who've been involved to kind of understand what the plan is for this summer, and if they plan on having any additional staff. I think Captain Sanchez is also signing on right now. So, who would like to kick it off? Councilmember Dinowitz's office, Stephanie or Christina?
How's everybody doing? You have Captain Sanchez from Park Enforcement.
Hey, hi, Captain Sanchez. Good to see you.
Good. How you doing?
So what's the plan for the summer? I mean, I'm sure you've heard an earful, as much as we have, regarding gatherings on Jerome Avenue in Chandler, Kelly Field. There's certainly been fires in Van Cortlandt Park, just a general fire risk. And like as we discussed earlier with the e-bikes, there's going to be more e-bikes this summer. So what do you plan, like what's your plan to tackle that?
Well, we actually, I don't know if the 47, the 50, or the 52 has spoken to you yet, but we have an operation being done July 1st with the 47 precinct regarding different conditions, regarding the scooter issues, the barbecuing issues, and loud music late at night. So we are conducting an operation July 1st with the 47 precinct. I'm also in contact with the Chief of Patrol regarding Adams Chandler parking lot, regarding the unauthorized vehicles that park on Jerome Avenue. So I'm just waiting to hear back from them, but I did email them, I think it was Tuesday, and I'm just waiting for a response from them. But we are going to be conducting joint operations with the 47, the 50, and the 52.
When you say conducting operations, do you mean that for like a couple of days you'll be doing operations, or like over the summer you'll be doing?
Over the summer we're going to be doing, over the summer we're going to be doing different operations. We are working hand in hand with the precinct. We are aware of the community concerns, but we're going to be tackling that a lot this summer.
You have more budget? I know that that was one of the things we really raised earlier in the year, was just you guys are understaffed. I mean, you do good work for the number of folks you got, but you're understaffed. Do you have the budget? Have there been any changes in the amount of budget that you have?
Not as of yet. We are trying to, right now, for the borough of the Bronx, we have 38 officers. We took a big hit when the police academy opened up. A lot of officers from the Bronx left Parks Enforcement and they went into the NYPD Academy. But we are working with the precinct to try to battle these conditions that's taking place in Van Cortlandt Park.
Do you have open roles, or are you limited to how many people you can hire?
Right now, there's an academy in right now, and they're supposed to come out, I think, in the end of June or the beginning. No, actually, in the middle of July, they're supposed to come out. I don't know how much I'm gonna get, but right now I think there's like 32 officers at the academy right now. But I also want you to realize that out of those 32 officers, we have 5 boroughs that have to also get officers as well.
Right. So is it a matter, though, of like, you know, like the community board posting the notices that you guys are hiring for the academy, or is there no hiring happening?
Yeah, there is hiring happening. I know we've been going to different job fairs with NYPD. When NYPD opens up some certain events, we do go with NYPD and we do hand out flyers regarding our openings in Park Enforcement.
So what makes this year different than last year, I guess would be my question. What do you want to do or try differently?
Well, the difference is, to be honest with you, the difference is that we're working more hand in hand with NYPD. They've been very, very excited to work with Park Enforcement, because there's a lot of rules and regulations they don't know that we do have, and we can write summonses on. And yeah, it's been great. I know last week we actually tackled Van Cortlandt Park on 233rd Street, 262nd Street, and at the same time where we're conducting these operations, we also issued a summons for unlawful dumping, which our company unlawfully dumped 3 barrels of oil on our property, and one of our officers observed it while on patrol, and they were issued a summons. So we have
They
been
did that
working.
in the park?
Actually, yeah. They wind up dumping 3 canisters, barrels actually of oil, and one of our officers observed it and issued multiple summonses, and as well as environmental police, DEP police was also notified, and sanitation was also notified, and they are investigating it, and they said they are going to go after the company. They unlawfully dumped the barrels of oil on the property.
How much are those summonses? 100, 500, 5,000?
Our summonses, the summonses that were issued, one of them was for 1,500, the other one was for 350, and for failure to comply was $250.
Sorry.
Right. Do you also do the summons for the tractor trailers that are parked just outside of Van Cortlandt Park's entrance?
Yes, we issue parking summonses, and if we do observe the driver, we issue them summonses as well.
I see iPhone's hand is up.
Hand was up from
Is
earlier.
that from before?
Yeah.
Hello, it's Captain
okay.
Saror. It's my hand. So you ready for me?
Yeah, totally.
Yep. With regarding to the parks, I know we've got a lot of complaints about car meets, about noise, these trailers that you just mentioned right now. I just wanted to tell you, since you know, I've been in there and listening to your complaints, I've addressed practically all of them. We've changed officers' tours in the command to be around when this noise was going on. The reason I suggested the joint ops with parks is because police officers cannot stay the entire tour at a park. They have to go and respond to emergencies and answer 911 calls. So the times that we do joint ops, it's nice to have the parks officers who can stay on their post in the park just to stabilize. But honestly, like, I've been out there to that area. My special operations lieutenant has been out there, and we haven't observed any instances of these complaints. So they are getting rarer. It's not as prevalent as it used to be. Definitely, we have done a lot of enforcement in terms of summonses and taking people's speakers and vouchering them where they cannot even get them back. So I think the prevalence has gotten less, and the fact that we're already probably coming up on July, like next week, and it's been the way that it has been, shows a lot of improvement in the situation. It shows a lot of improvement. I was sent a video of a car meet that occurred at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's occurring at 8 o'clock in the morning because they're not able to have their car meets at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning because we're out there. You understand? And you brought up also the motorbikes. I invite you to come to the 50 precinct before next week and take a look at how many bikes we have taken over the past month. There's over 40 bikes in the lot right now.
One thing that seems to be maybe happening more this summer is just fires. I know it's really, really dry. Are you seeing that? Stephanie, are you seeing that? Or is it just my imagination that this year there's more fires?
There's definitely more fires. There's definitely more fires in the park. It is because it's a lot drier. It's not just Van Cortlandt Park, it's throughout the city.
Were those fires accidental, Stephanie, or do you think they might have been set deliberately?
It's hard to say, but I don't think that it's deliberate. I think it might be someone smoking and it's very dry and an accident happens. But I don't have any proof that it is arson. Fire department has come out multiple times and they have never indicated that.
It's carelessness, it sounds like. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Does the Parks Department ever put up any signage or anything to indicate that it's extra dry? I mean, I know like when you go into national parks during the spring, they'll have a like, you know, no fires, or, you know, they'll at least indicate that like it's the risk of fire is high. Does the Parks Department ever think about doing something like that?
I haven't seen it. I can ask.
They have the red flags for when the fields are too wet to use. So, pick a different color, Stephanie.
Can it be blue?
Sounds like the right one. Yes, David.
Yeah, Officer Sanchez, you said you're gonna start conducting operations, probably as of, I guess, Saturday. Are those operations going around and asking people to turn off the music or put out fires? Or is it confiscation? Or is it giving out summonses? And if you are giving out summonses and they claim they don't have ID, what do you do?
If they say they don't have ID, we try to take a verbal from them and verify it throughout central communication. If it comes back false, we do take them to the precinct to verify who they are, and they be issued a summons at the precinct.
Oh, you call it in to verify their name and address?
Correct, to see if all the information they're providing is true. If it's true, they be issued a summons right on the spot. But if the information comes back false, we do transport them to the precinct to get ID verification and to make sure that they're giving the right information, and the summons will be issued at the precinct.
Okay, and are you doing confiscation for repeated offenses?
If we do observe amplified sound and they compliant, they are issued a summons and they are told to put the amplified sound back in the vehicle. If they refuse to put the amplified sound inside the vehicle, we will confiscate the amplified sound, and they will have to go to the precinct to try to get the amplified sound back.
Okay, and how about illegal vehicles?
Inside the park?
Yes, inside the park.
Okay, if we do see any type of motor vehicles inside the park, same thing, they'll be issued a summons and the vehicle will be escorted out of the park.
So is the new Greenway rules, are they complicating that? Because you technically can't stop somebody who's on a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike, from being on the Greenway.
Well, knowing that this rule is really new, I know we're coordinated with NYPD and FDNY and educating the public at this time just to let them know where they could ride the scooter at now and where they cannot ride the scooter at. I know in Van Cortlandt Park, there are signs on the Greenway saying that you're not allowed to have e-bikes on the Greenway. Our first education location was at Van Cortlandt Park, and we did educate multiple individuals that had e-bikes. I would say a lot of them was very upset about the new rule regarding e-bikes, but we advised all of them, if we do observe them in the Greenway, they will be issued a summons.
So wait, say that again. If you see an e-bike on the Greenway, they will be issued a summons? What you said? No.
No, they'll be educated. So
They'll be educated about that they can be on the Greenway, or that they have to stay on the Greenway?
They have to stay on the Greenway.
Got it. Okay. All right. Any other questions about kind of how the summer is gonna go?
I also want to let you know that there were 2 summonses issued for bicyclists. When we were on scene last week, there was a bicyclist that drove right by 2 elderly individuals and wound up yelling at them to get out the way, and those 2 bicyclists were issued a summons because they were very reckless.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't take much for someone to get hurt badly. Thank you for that. Have there been any injuries that you're aware of? And I'll go to that question.
No, not that I'm aware of. We gotta try our best before it even gets to that point for us to start enforcing it, especially the bicyclists, because they're very ruthless when it comes to riding their bike. And my opinion, sometimes they feel that they own the pathway, and they just ride right through pedestrians sometimes and don't stop.
Some are ruthless.
Yes. Double roofless.
Some of us can't ever get up going that fast. Ed Green.
Hi, I guess this question is for both Captain Sanchez and Captain Saror. So, you know, we've heard a lot about the main issues are basically amplified sound and illegal bikes, and there's actually other issues going on in the park too. But is there any way? Is there any statistics being kept that are available for the public so the community board can kind of get a sense of how widespread these things are and how effective our departments are at curtailing this type of stuff? Is there any statistics that are going to be made available to the public that we can kind of monitor and get an understanding about how much of this is going on in our community?
So there's a couple of things that I could do to compile some stats for you. However, it's not going to be a completely accurate picture because not every incident that happens gets called in by 311 or 911. So, you know, the ones that we do respond to, they typically have a measure of some sort where a summons was issued or the condition was corrected without enforcement. You know, but it's going to take me time to compile that for you.
Okay, I was wondering. Yeah, I was just, yeah.
I could give you a rough idea right now for the year. I would say about 100 summonses were given to just that area of Adams Chandler Park, and not just by the 5-0 precinct. I mean, that's not an accurate number, but I just know that that definitely has happened because I ran last month. I did some work on last month's summonses, and I saw there was 50 issued. So I'm fairly certain, you know, it's 100 or more, and that is combined with double parking tickets, along with what we call oath summonses and criminal court summonses for noise or for disorderly conduct or being in the park past whatever time, and the speakers we've taken. If it's on top of a car, we don't give a warning for that. We take the external sound device. That's how we operate in the 5-0, and that's what I told them. I don't want you to leave with the device. I want it back at the precinct so that you could stop making the noise.
Thank you. You know, I was just wondering if there was anything that you guys normally did as far as keeping statistics. I can't speak for the community board, but I certainly don't want you guys jumping through hoops to do extra stuff so that we can know this and know that, being as shorthanded as you are. But I don't know.
I'm having my staff prepare me some type of report on this park that I asked for, so I will share it, but it's not an official report. It's something just so that I could speak on the problem here in the 5-0. The 5-0 has been given the responsibility of leading the charge with regards to this park. So we have formulated a plan that we work on jointly along with the 4-7 precinct and the 5-2 precinct. We've helped each other. We've had some huge melees. I would say about 3 of them for the year, where we were all present and we all helped each other clear out the area and take whatever enforcement we had to. All 3 of those instances happened on a weekend and near a holiday. So with July 4th coming up, you know, we're preparing for that. We've been given modules of overtime so that I could staff that park, because as I've told you, and you guys know, the 5-0 precinct is very short on personnel, and we're the last to get resources, unfortunately, because we are one of the least violent commands in the Bronx, which is a good thing, you know, but unfortunately, like, having big numbers to deal with the quality of life falls to the wayside sometimes. With that being said, again, we're preparing for July 4th. We plan to have extra coverage, extra overtime for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and spend my experience since being the commander here, that the melees and the noise and the car meets happen on the weekend and they happen near the holidays. So I would expect them to try this weekend to do something, but, you know, we'll be out there and we'll handle it the best that we can. Again, I want to just mention and highlight, like, the cops in the 5-0 know about this condition. Their bosses know about this condition. They've been out there, and I can guarantee that this year is way better than last year. We're in July, and I've seen only 1 video of these car meets. So, you know, we're doing something about it. And as I mentioned before. The 5-0 is leading the charge with regards to this. I have several meetings with other politicians' office and my own supervisors. The issues that are being raised about this park are being heard on very high levels, from the police commissioner's office to the mayor's office. I myself wrote the plan and included the Parks Department within that plan, and have spoken to Captain Sanchez, and he's saying that there's operations in the future, but I just want to make you aware that we've also had joint operations in the past where he was a part of that, and his commissioner gave him overtime to stay past his tour to help us, so that we could work together to tackle this. It's just, again, like I said, this is not an everyday thing that's happening now anymore. It's very spontaneous. So while we are out there trying to address it every day, we don't find it every day. It's spontaneous now. They know we're out there, and they try to go around us.
Thank you, Captain.
I will actually.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I'm sorry. I will actually have to echo what the captain said. It's not happening every weekend. They could have somebody watching us, but this is, I remember when I first came to the Bronx, this was happening every weekend. This was happening 1 o'clock in the morning all the way up to 8 in the morning. And most of the time on the weekends, I have the golf course that calls me and tells me, oh, they started up, and it's already 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, and they already started up at 8 in the morning. So this is not taking place 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning anymore, like in the past. This is taking place like probably 7, 8 in the morning. And when my guys come in, they'll go right to Van Cortlandt and shut it down as well. So I will actually have to say PD has been a big help, because I do see them out there at Van Cortlandt Park on the weekends at 2, 3 in the morning. So, they do know that PD PEP is out there. So this is taking place 7, 8 in the morning.
Hey, David, did you have a question?
Yeah, I understand the concern about car meetups in the middle of the night, but this thing about melees, I have never heard that mentioned in our parks in more than 20 years. Could you elaborate on that? That's very worrisome. Captain Soror?
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. Yeah, when I say melee, it's what the police like to describe, an officer having to call for help because the crowd is too large for them. I believe, a fight was erupted in one of them, and the video made the internet at one point. It was a pretty large crowd, and a lot of people got involved, and there's drinking and whatnot, and we had to combine forces to stabilize the situation. So I'll say for the whole year there was about.
We've had that before. We had the shooting a few years ago.
That's different from a melee. A melee is a huge crowd that's fighting each other and fighting the cops, and it's out of control. That's very different.
I think what they're referring to is...
melee has levels. Melee has levels.
Let me finish.
Melee has levels. No one fought the police at those. They were disorderly. There was a lot of them. We needed a large number of cops so that we could be safe. And that was it. And it was handled very quickly.
Okay, that's a little different.
Yeah. Bonnie Geller, Geld? Thank you, Captain Storm. Bonnie, are you able to unmute yourself? R6, correct? Yeah,
No,
Bonnie?
Connect on mute too.
It would be the learning process of hybrid.
Unmuted? Am I unmuted now?
There you are.
I'm sorry, I just came in and I'm breaking into a conversation that I wasn't prepared to talk about. So I wanted to know the order of the agenda so I can, be heard when you start talking about the pickleball courts.
You'll know when we're talking about the pickleball. So we're now talking about park safety. Next, we'll be talking about the volunteering in our parks, and then we'll be talking about capital projects, and that's when we'll talk about the pickleball court.
Okay, so I will raise my hand again. I'm sorry to interrupt, because what you're talking about is very important also, so I apologize.
No, it's all fine, it's all good.
Thanks.
Laura Stolter. No, totally.
Hi, Captain Saror, thank you for all those efforts. At our last meeting, you had suggested that Community Board 8, right, the 50th, right, you, and regarding overtime. And we are happy to continue that effort if there's anything else you need us to do. We also wrote to Conti,
yes,
and I hope it was helpful. And if there's anything else, please, because that's such a critical point, and that was a good suggestion you gave us, we followed up.
If you could forward me a copy of that, I didn't see any letter about overtime, but I did speak with my bosses, and as much as the overtime has been shut down citywide for all city agencies, they did give me the green light that if I need something to stabilize any problem, I have their blessing to hold people for the overtime.
Okay, all right. We sent it that within the week, so we will definitely resend it. And thank you for following up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll resend. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying, Laura. Chris MD.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you. First, I just wanted to say thank you to all the enforcement personnel here. That perspective is very important, I think, because sometimes as us, I'm just, someone who lives in the neighborhood. Sometimes we don't always get that perspective. So I appreciate that. But, one of the things that I wanted to point out, I've heard mention of certain areas in Van Cortlandt. One area that's definitely seen an increase in the various complaints that I've heard mentioned here is the area around the Riverdale Stables. There's a new playground that was recently built right in the area. And I can say for sure, I've lived in this same area for 7 years. There's been a definite increase in that particular area. It could be that, people who normally had those really loud parties and whatnot in other parts of the park, because of the enforcement have now moved to this part of the park. But I've definitely seen a sharp increase, especially since that playground was built. And just one of the worrying things is that it's a playground for kids, and those types of complaints happening around kids is definitely worrying, aside from the public nuisance of it all. But I just wanted to bring that area up. Again, I appreciate all that's being done. I just wanted to make sure that area was noted.
And Captain Shore, I think we've sent the emails on, but that's the area too where we've been getting the bulk of our complaints, is that kind of northwest corner by Kelly Field and near the stables.
That's actually very surprising to me. I've been out there. It seems very quiet and calm. And I haven't received any complaints. This is the first I'm hearing about it.
Yeah,
I'll have my officers, a special ops lieutenant, like I said, he's on the line. We can make a note of that, and we'll have people go out there, survey, and follow up.
Chris, is there specific times where you recommend that they go?
Weekend evenings, anytime after 5 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday nights.
Chris, how you doing? This is Captain Sanchez from Park Enforcement. So are you seeing the parties taking place at Kelly Field? Because on the weekends we do go by there and we're not getting any complaints, or do we want complaints around Kelly Fields regarding any type of parties or anything like that taking place?
It's not Kelly Fields, because Kelly Fields is a little bit past Moshulu.
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually between Moshulu and West 256.
Okay.
Chris, are you seeing anything at Carroll Field, which is the most northern field?
I'm not seeing anything there. I've just, because I actually live right in the area that I'm mentioning.
Right, okay.
I see it from my window. I hear it. We can't, we literally can't do normal everyday things because of the noise and the craziness that goes on in this park. It's definitely been a sharp increase. I've lived in the same building for 7 years. Before that playground was built, it was pretty quiet. The most we would get is some cricket players on Sunday mornings. That was it. And now just about every single weekend, it's very large gatherings, music from cars, from external speakers, other things as well. But it's a lot.
Thank you. One thing that I have noticed is that there is a very, very large uptick in parking alongside Northwest Playground. And so cars are coming into the park where they're not supposed to park, and they're just along the shoulder there. It's called Mashalou, and it's inside the park. So,
yes.
So Captain Sroor and Captain Sanchez, if that's something that you would want to take a look at, I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I did take a look at it, and we've written a lot of parking summonses. Obviously, you know, the volume of people in New York City, like maybe the person that we tagged learned their lesson, but then the new person didn't. So it's just an ongoing process. And, you know, we've been quite relentless and not giving up and not lifting our foot off the gas pedal when it comes to this park for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I know also it can be difficult or maybe frustrating to report this stuff, but it is really good to call 311 or contact 311 to report it. If it's difficult to report the location, which it can be very hard with parks, you know, you can always just email the board office to specific locations where you're seeing activity that you're concerned about, and we can pass it on to the captains.
I mean, yeah, you don't have to call 311. Sometimes that makes it like worse, because what's been happening is people who call 311 are calling 311 and giving the wrong address a lot of times. You know, it's I'm not going to waste your time like explaining the logistics of it right now, but I'll just say that we are aware that this is happening. If you hear the noise and you want to, you know, text or email, you know, me or the NCOs, or call the 50 precinct desk or something, you know, you could do that as well. But 311 knows that there's ongoing issues in that park. And like I said, I tasked my people with checking up on it. So the 311 auto, while they drive around, probably by the time they get to this noise complaint, maybe then it's been handled already.
The table. The voice came up.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I think somebody was muted.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. You can continue.
Yeah, so I have a lot of units that are looking at this, you know, park. So there's a sector concern. There's neighborhood coordination officers. I have my public safety team even driving by to check. Then there's just a bunch of supervisors who are all have their driver, so they're a team. So there's the sergeant, the patrol sergeant, the NCO sergeant, the public safety sergeant, the special operations lieutenant. Believe me, there's everybody is very aware in the 50, in the 52, and in the 47 about this problem, and they periodically check on it.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. I mean, I appreciate all of the work that all of you are doing to knock this problem back. You know, it makes a big difference in both the enjoyment of our parks and also just the protection of our parks as green spaces and protecting the capital investments that we do with them. So thank you again for all of your work, and thank you for coming on this call tonight to describe it, to kind of loop us in. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. It's our pleasure. It's our job. And if you take pride in that park, I just want you to know that so do we. You know, everyone at the 50 is very proud of Van Cortlandt Park. We take pride in it, and we take care of it.
Here's the service.
Yes, Herb.
Yes, am I on the audio? I've got trouble at my end.
Okay.
Your audio's working, Herb.
We can hear you, Herb.
Mic is working.
Oh, all right, thank you. Yeah, 50, I appreciate your help also when it comes to Memorial Grove. So I got to say thank you to Officer Sala if he's still there on that duty. I appreciate you. I would like to make a quick announcement. I make a quick announcement if you don't mind. I have plans to do a ceremony this coming June 6th, 24. That is the 80th anniversary of the invasion of Normandy. 80 years have gone by, and I know most of you folks don't even know much about the more current wars, but this is 80 years, and we lost many, many thousands of troops doing the invasion, and I want to get them recognized. So I'm going to do a ceremony at the Grove. If you make a note, it would be June 6th, 2024 at 12 noon at the Grove. I thank you for the time.
Thank you, Herb. So next we will move on to our next topic on the agenda, which is volunteering in our parks. We are super lucky to have in our district a lot of community members who engage with the parks. We are also lucky in our city to have an organization like Partnership for Parks, which exists to help people better work with the park departments and all of their programs and rules in order to, be able to support our city parks. So tonight we've got Sabina Zaragosi, who's the Executive Director of Partnership for Parks. We've got Vlad Cruz, who's the Outreach Director, and Carl Vetter, who's the Outreach Coordinator. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't call out Mike Ortiz, who also is very engaged with helping our volunteers, as is Joe Magnieri, who I don't think is on the call tonight. Joe, are you there?
I sure am. That.
I saw that Joseph's iPhone. I wasn't sure. That's you. Welcome.
Yes, I'm here.
All right, there we go.
And also in Van Cortlandt Park, the Van Cortlandt Park Alliance.
You guys aren't you volunteers like us?
Well, we work with volunteers.
I know, it's true. Well, yes, I would never want to throw any shade on Van Cortlandt Park Alliance. You do amazing work, so thank you. I thought that maybe, Sabina, you could kick us off by telling us a bit more about what Partnership for Parks does and kind of what you're looking for in community members.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. We're really happy to be here and support a whole host of really incredible volunteers. I know, Deb, the last time I saw you, we were out in the pouring rain and we were walking around, looking at all of the beautiful planting beds and talking about challenges and opportunities and brainstorming together. We just want to say, number one, that we are here to support community in parks and really help, not only navigate through rules and regulations and opportunities for people to get involved, whether it's to help host events or do beautification and cleanup work or, horticultural work. But we're also here to connect people to resources that we have, resources that we provide internally within partnerships, everything from dedicated staff support. And I know you introduced Vlad and Carl. Carl's one of our terrific Bronx outreach coordinators. We have people that are here to support community engagement. We have grants that we provide. We actually just had an information session right before this meeting, and we can send more information out about that, but we just launched our newest grant program, which is to provide funding for community folks who are doing wonderful work in their local parks, and that's live and active right now. We also offer skill building and training opportunities, everything from leadership development and organizational development to working with the Parks Department, working with elected officials, planning and hosting programs and events. And of course, our It's My Park program, which I think a lot of people are familiar with, which is one of our most popular resources, which is really a way for people to get involved again in that park care, that beautification and cleanup work, where through a process of just registering your project and getting it approved with our colleagues, in parks, our park managers and our park supervisors, we provide tools and you know, sometimes we're able to get our hands on plant materials and staff support so that people can come out throughout the year, predominantly on weekends, but folks come out during the week as well, to really, you know, get your hands literally dirty, right, in the soil, paint benches, fences, you know, clean up playgrounds and so forth. So that's just a little bit of a, you know, of a summary. But we are a part of the Parks Department. We are also part of City Parks Foundation, which is a nonprofit organization also dedicated to providing programming in parks throughout the 5 boroughs. And so we're really fortunate that we're able to bring a lot of different resources together to support community engagement in neighborhoods across the city. So I don't want to take up too much time. Maybe I can turn it over to Carl and to Vlad to talk a little bit about you know, what engagement is looking like right now, you know, on a more local level.
Oh, sure. I would love to. Thank you, Sabina. Hello, everybody. I'm Carl, your local friendly outreach coordinator. Just quickly, a little bit about me. I have returned to Partnership for Parks last June. I was a seasonal in 2019. So I really liked the work, and so I got to work with a lot of great groups back in, you know, before the pandemic. And once the pandemic lifted, I returned very poetically. And so we have a lot of great involvement at the Stewards of Ewen Park. In Ewen Park, we have Jerome Park fans with Deborah. We have Jody Colon, who is the head of Friends of Spuyten Duyvil and the Friends of Henry Hudson. These groups are fairly regularly active throughout the entire year. As Sabina said, mostly on weekends, but Jody has some weekdayers trying to volunteers. And it's really great because, you know, early this year, we're trying to incorporate more native plants and native plant programming into our parks. And so a lot of our groups, we were able to connect with the Native Plant Center in Van Cortlandt. So we're able to get these new native plants that are locally grown, better for the pollinators, to, you know, not just beautify, but to ecologically strengthen these parks. And even this year, with the help of Eric Dinowitz's office with Parks Equity Initiative, we hosted 2 city nature festivals. We had some weather issues. It was quite rainy that weekend, but we managed to persevere. And we had the urban park rangers, we had seed balls, we had STEM art crafts. So we're really looking to find new ways to not just, you know, have people volunteer in the parks, but to take it to the next step and, you know, use what we're doing to, you know, make it stronger. And, you know, I have been the outreach coordinator since February. So, you know, I've only been here for a few months, but we've really hit the ground running. So I'm looking forward to, you know, more groups, more projects, more native plants and all that beautiful stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, if there's anything that I may be able to add, I think that this community board in particular is lucky to have someone like Carl, who's actually just graduated from our Master Gardener program out in Brooklyn Botanical Gardens. So if there's anyone that's most equipped on our team to help you with any of those native plantings or any sort of recommendations to beautify your parks, he's your go-to guy. He's usually our go-to guy within the program, who's very involved and has been extensively involved in conversations with our maintenance and operations staff regarding maintaining these plants, making sure that they're not completely mowed over. You know, he's working very closely with Teddy, who is our senior outreach coordinator in the Bronx, as well as Kate Glusberg, who's our volunteer program manager, to address some of those issues that have plagued some of these park properties. So he's been advocating, fighting fiercely for all of you.
So I'm glad you brought that up. I know that like plants getting mowed over is definitely one of the things that I think all of the parks groups can share. We've all had it happen. And it's particularly devastating because it's often like, you know, 20 or 30 plants that take a whole bed at a time. I think there's some folks from Brush Park on here who have had it happen twice this season with kind of big parts of Brush Park. So what are you doing to make that difference?
So some of the things that, you know, as Parks is moving forward in this new initiative, there's many transitions that need to occur. And so we're kind of navigating a new field because, the nurseries were growing, ornamentals, and now they're growing natives and nativars, or whatever you want to call some tweaked natives. And so there's Parks inspection guidelines, and so we're trying to find out how to manage what looks like a weed and what is a native plant. That is a new conversation that is happening. Just figuring out ways to clearly identify native plantings, whether it is through fencing, mulch borders. We're going to start including walkthroughs with the mowing crews at the beginning of the season with the maintenance operations staff, so that we can identify all the spots that are being worked on by our groups, as well as to work with trying to source the maintenance plans of the groups, so that we can kind of see like, oh, the mowing crew is coming at this time. But the group is coming in 3 days to pull weeds. Like that information can kind of sometimes help as well. So, we're just exploring all the different options, as much open communication across the different teams, because gardening in public is one of the hardest things that if you garden, it's one of the hardest places to garden for all these reasons, because, we could do everything right, but, a raccoon, a dog, a heat wave, a smoke alert, all these things, so we have to garden with, the lack of, some kind of humility when we garden in public. So, it is unfortunate.
Plant test, Carl.
We're working on
that. All right, did you have anything you wanted to add? All right, Melba, get your hand up.
Hi, I am a volunteer in Ewan Park, so I really appreciate all the hard work you guys are doing, especially because we know how busy everybody is. So I've spent a lot of time finding really interesting garbage on the slopes there, helping some planting. But I'm a relatively new resident to Spuyten Duyvil, and one of the things that I have really been struck by with park volunteering and citizen engagement has been that it's really, really hard for volunteers to do more than just plant and pick up garbage. So to be a little more specific, our everyday experience of the parks is really impacted by capital projects. And so we sit there and we sort of see something's going on with a capital project. There's a phone number on the board. You can
Very
call
good.
it. Sometimes somebody picks up. So I'm just curious if there were a way for park volunteers who know their parks, know the ecosystem, know the plantings. Again, that's been wonderful so far, but we also know how people walk through the park. We know how things are used. We know what local residents need. Do they need an adult exercise center? Do they need a tot lot? We're just about to dive into a $4 million new
on the
staircase.
sidewalk.
So my question is there a way that park volunteers could actually be intimately involved with capital projects as well and really have a seat at the table, really be in on decisions, really be a source of high quality feedback, analysis about how this park actually has a history or not, how much it floods, what is the average age of everybody living there? And one of the things I've noticed in just trying to get information about capital projects is that New York's a big city and a lot of the people involved live far away in Queens. They don't know our local ecosystem. It's really hard to actually have a face-to-face conversation with somebody from capital projects. So I just really wanted to toss this out there as I thank you guys because we love our parks so much. Wow. And I think we all come at it in different ways. Thank you.
Hi, Melba. My name is Catherine. I'm the capital director for the Bronx. And regarding your comment and your question, we host community input meetings for each capital project in which we want the community involved. We want them to share their concerns, to tell us what they know about the park, because you are right. Most of the time, the designers or the capital division that's working on in these parks are not from the community. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what happens. But this is why we reach out to the community to help us come to a decision of what should be reconstructed or what is needed or what the park or the playground is missing. So that's one way that we make sure to have the community involved in these decisions.
Is there any way we could stay abreast though? Like, could I have a meeting with you? Or Ms. Boro, could we actually meet? I'm happy to buy you a cup of coffee. Whatever it takes. I'd really love to get to know you guys better. And because we have so much work going on in our park. It's a beautiful old place. It was founded in 1935. But I'm just, again, I don't want to derail the other discussion about volunteering because it's a glorious place. We all love it. And so if there's a way we could
interrupt you for a minute just to say that there's actually a pretty good process. The community board is part of it. So we would love to hear too when we're doing our list of our capital budget priorities, which we do in January each year. Like we totally would invite you to come to our community board meeting and organize among yourselves and then come and make a presentation and tell us what you would like so that we can discuss it and put it in priorities. So I can guarantee you that all of the parks groups on this call, we all think our parks are the best parks in the world. And so,
like we should, Deb.
Like we should, it's a good thing. And so, but so there's competing priorities, number one. And then number two is talk to your council people. Like your council member is also where that funding is going to come from. And then number three is I'm going to toss it over to Sabina and Vlad because Partnership for Parks has had classes and stuff in the past about kind of how the capital process works and how to engage with it, how to, measure the usage of your parks and that kind of thing. So Sabina, what are you guys doing that stuff now? And like, what's your schedule for the summer?
Yeah, so thank you. And Melba, thank you. And, it's great to be here with our parks colleagues to speak on all of these different components. We really try to work closely within, the borough teams to also help be a line of communication, like when there are capital updates or opportunities for community input sessions. Carl is one of the people, for instance, as well as our other outreach staff who really try to get the word out to make sure that people know about those opportunities. So we're really working hand in hand to try to spread the word and make sure that opportunities for input are available to people and accessible. With regard to what Deb's raising, so we actually had a program called People Make Parks for quite a number of years. And Deb, I think you were part of that program, right, for a while, which started out as a way, this was like many years ago, this sort of kicked off in 2008. It really started out as a way for community members to just, in interactive, colorful, activities, engage their peers within your own neighborhood and community to gather ideas and wishes and dreams, right, for your park. And we would work with people to help kind of turn that into really a data-driven report, right? Over time, as the Parks Department has, as the Parks Department's really expanded opportunities, as the Parks Department's expanded opportunities for community input into the capital process, some of the things that we were doing have become a little less relevant because the larger process has opened up so much. That said, we are happy to meet with you. That's something we can sort of show you. We're working on kind of our website had to be taken down, and we're going to revamp some of those tools and figure out ways now to bring them into sort of 2023 and make sure that they're in alignment with the current Parks Department processes. So we're all working together to really advance the vision that the neighborhood has around your particular park. So all of that is to say, we are also a resource for having those conversations. And, when we do, we want to make sure we're just connecting back with our colleagues who are overseeing these capital processes so that we're not operating outside of what exists, but just finding more opportunities to bring in those voices and those ideas. So we can follow up with you outside of this meeting, if that helps.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Can I just add as well, Mello? I know you moved to the neighborhood pretty recently, and this isn't just lip service. The STAIRS community input was a pretty extensive process, and I was really impressed the whole park was covered in signs announcing the meetings. There were several meetings, and you could directly see in the designs that they presented, because they presented several rounds of designs, the community feedback being incorporated and it being tweaked based on site visits and things like that. So it was really extensive, but these capital projects are long processes, and there's only a few entry points for them to have the capacity to gather community input. So I think you're coming in kind of in the middle of, they have their heads down now and they're working on design and engineering and feasibility and all of that. But hopefully we'll see what comes out of that soon.
Right, and thank you so much, because this is really clarifying. I think it's when these are long cycles and really big organizations, we can't iterate very easily. So if, let's say there's a major sort of change in design or materials, we can't ever get back to it because everyone says, oh, we already did that. But it, you know, something has changed substantially, but it, you know, it's time to revisit and maybe allow community members to possibly communicate that maybe this shouldn't be a design change, or maybe these the original materials are more appropriate, things like that. So I think there's maybe a need to bring things a little more local, a little more face-to-face, and a little more iterative. That would be sort of my meta feedback. And I know how hard it is, especially with the pandemic. We all got really isolated. But I just thank you so much, everybody.
Stop you for a second. Rob?
So the first thing is, so this exercise equipment thing, which is going to open someday. I don't think June.
We'll find out. They're going to tell us. Catherine's going to tell us.
2 more days for June. But the timeline is it's like a glacial pace. And so it's one city councilman ago, a mayor ago, and whose idea was this and who wanted it initially? The people, in an on scientific survey, most don't want it. So who wanted it? Maybe they're long gone, whoever wanted that exercise thing. But you feel as if it's happening to you because someone 10 years ago wanted it. And what are you going to do about it? There it is, and it's kind of a monstrosity, in my view.
And all the plants are already there.
Yeah. And I think this brings up a good point, Sabina. Like, I would bet that the exercise equipment is coming into the park, perhaps because somebody wanted it, but also probably because somebody looked at a map and said, okay, there's not very much exercise equipment within a radius, and so they get exercise equipment.
There's a quota.
There's a quota. And so are you finding that you changed kind of your model of working because Parks is making some of these capital decisions based more on their own inspection reports and looking at where distribution, and partly probably out of equity, because, right, the racial equity tends to favor folks who are more privileged, and so parks that have a lot more privilege tend to have a lot more amenities. I think that was something that we found over the last few years, is that some parks just don't get the capital expense put into them. But do you find that the Parks Department is kind of more likely to make its own independent choices about where capital should be spent? Outside of not so much from community input or from the community board's input? That's a loaded question, so answer it however you would like.
Yeah, I think you directed that to me, Deb. I mean, I'll say a quick word, but I feel like really my colleagues, Catherine and Mike Ortiz may be able to speak a little more directly to this because it's a little on the periphery of what I do. So I don't want to misspeak, but I mean, look, I've been with Partnerships for Parks for 18 years. I started as an outreach coordinator working very directly with groups. So I've seen this really interesting trajectory of where the agency has been and how far we've come. With really opening up processes for input and communication. That's not to say that there's not always more work that can be done around this. We're all always learning and evolving, so that's, there's always room for improvement, right? But what I will say is what I've seen, and I feel proud that we've been a part of this change together within the agency, is really a shift in how community input is received to inform these projects. We of course have, designers and, folks that have a lot of training and expertise in figuring out what might fit well in a space and looking at, information within the broader community about amenities, as you pointed out, Deb. And on that note, I feel like I would like to turn it over to my colleagues to speak a little more directly about, you know, how the designs are informed and presented and how they move forward.
Thank you very much, Sabina.
Yeah,
Hi,
Mike or
everyone.
Patrice?
Hi,
Mike.
how are you? So thank you very much, Sabina. You know, all these points that were brought up are very, very good. And thank you all for, you know, just jumping in and basically giving our answers even before we, you know, we had a chance to go in there. It just shows how much we, you know, the amount of work that we put in collectively into creating a more open and collaborative process on our capital projects. You know, Deb, you brought up a question that I think is very interesting. You said if there were more community collaboration, would that, you know, better dictate where we can place certain things in the park? As you know, we don't have our own capital budget. Every single capital project that we have to go to the elected officials for them to provide us with the funding for each project. You know, we provide them a list of projects. Only a fraction of them truly ever get funded. And it's very unfortunate. The project at Ewing Park that Jody, I believe it was you that was mentioning, the exercise equipment, that was actually a participatory budgeting process project. It was put on the ballot by the, I believe it was the former council member, Cohen at the time, who they had put this project. It was Cohen, right? Yeah. And it was put on the ballot. And what he said, I remember him saying he ended up funding the project, even though it wasn't the project that had the most votes, but he said it had so many votes that it came so close that they thought it was a really good project. So that is an example of, you know, just the participation from the public in deciding, you know, the project moving forward, which is great. So I think participatory budgeting is a great process for people to give their input. And, you know, as everyone mentioned, we do have, you know, community input. We start off each project with a community input meeting. We've been hosting them virtually. Before the pandemic, we used to go out to the community, host them in the community. We also have surveys that we keep open for 2 weeks after that meeting. There has to be a point where we stop taking community input in order for us to create the design. If we keep the input open for, you know, 8 months, and then the shift of the scope changes, that's 8 months worth of work that we unfortunately lost, that someone was working on, that unfortunately, you know, goes away, makes the project more expensive, you know, unfortunately makes a very, very long process even longer. So there are checkpoints all the way through. At the community input meeting, we get people's input. We have the survey open for 2 weeks, sometimes longer after meetings. And then we also have community board meetings. We come to each community board after each project for their approval. And we always invite the public that attended those meetings to the community board meeting when we present the project, so they can get their input as well. And, you know, so those are really the points that we have. You know, our whole idea is to get as much input up front so that it would guide our design moving forward.
And if I might add,
Mike, thank you, Mike, thanks for bringing that up. The more you spoke, the more I recall that we did in fact have meetings about this very issue, where you came in and we had people from around Ewing Park who spoke up on behalf of the exercise equipment. There was a constituency for it back in the day. Where those people are now, whether they're using the equipment, I have no idea.
Early death because they never got the exercise equipment.
They were there at the time, and as you said, this was, you know, this all went through a public process. But times change and attitudes change, and you're right. You know, we can't be in the design stage indefinitely on projects.
Well, Kat's going to mention it very shortly, but the exercise equipment, well, it's actually, as you all know, it's something that wasn't existing. The construction is complete on it now, and Kat will talk about it a little bit when she goes over the capital projects later on.
better hurry, someone climbed the fence and used the
People are already using it. Vlad, did you want to say something? And then I'll go to Jody and Bonnie.
Sure, very quickly. I just wanted to add, I think that Mike and Catherine did such a great job of sort of summarizing what the process looks like. But for Melba or anyone else who's curious, I would encourage you to visit nycgovparks.org's website and search for your local park. There you'll find a listing of the capital projects, where they are in the process, who's the project coordinator, and there's also a link on that site when you go to the capital projects that sort of tells you exactly how parks are built, and they go through the whole capital process from inception all the way through to construction, so that you'd be better equipped the next time something like this comes up. You know exactly where you are in the process and how you can best advocate for your park space.
If I may interrupt, I'm sorry, but that is such a long cycle. And again, iterative, more local, more face-to-face. I think that that website, which I've been pointed to a couple times, it's just simply not informative in the way that people who are actually living right next to that park are, have questions at a much sort of more intimate level. And so I know that that's a great tool at a very broad picture, but I think what's happening is just that New York is such a big city that a very broad tool doesn't really get down to the level of all the sort of local parks that we have, the capital projects, people's everyday concerns, questions. And then if there's a major design change or shift in materials, we have nowhere to turn, no one to talk to.
Well, Melba, just to add a little bit to what Vlad was saying, on that website, there's contact information for the project manager, which has now changed to myself, and I'm reachable. I'm here. Thank you. I'll put my email address in the chat. My email address and contact information is also on that website, and you could reach out to me and have that, intimate conversation that you'd like to have. I'm more than happy to help.
And there's no chat, but if you have trouble finding it on the webpage, you can always reach out to the board office so we can get.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. I didn't mean to go to Jody. She's had her hand up a long time. Jody.
Thank you, Deb. I've been so patient. Now there's like 80 things I want to say. So first of all, Melba, there actually was a very detailed iterative process, which Julie did mention. There were walkthroughs, and I have a very different perspective than most people. Friends of Spuyten Duyvil started in 1995, before Partnership for Parks even existed. We were one of the first 96 groups sort of inducted into it. And we did projects in 5 different parks, including Ewan Park. And we put in for those stairs in the middle. It took a couple of years for our council member to fund the stairs, but they ran out of money to do the top of the stairs. So the middle stairs were rebuilt in 2001. It's taken another 20 years to get the money to finish the top of the stairs, and that's the project. And I have to say that Mike and Catherine were very detailed in my 80,000 questions that I sent to them because I had missed a meeting. They got back to me. We had a lot of phone conversations and back and forth. So I had a very different experience about this, but I think part of it is because I come to the community board meetings, I look at the agendas. So this was all tracked through the agendas, and the signs were all over the place in the park. Like you guys were crazy at how many signs you put up. You put up more signs than I do. So, and sometimes capital projects take that long. Councilmember Dinowitz just funded a project that I've been submitting for 25 years to the community board. And I think it's really important that the community board reaches out to more people like Deb did to invite us all here, to let them know about the budget process, and that capital budget request list and expense list is as big as we can make it, because it becomes a funding list and a wish list, whether the borough president will submit them all or not. But I want to go back to Partnership for Parks. I was at the 25th anniversary celebration right before Luckdown, I believe it was. I am so not just a co-founder of Friends of Spite and Dival, I'm also the co-leader for Stewards of Henry Hudson Park. The tools that have been on permanent loan for us have been super helpful. We've been able to help other groups by sharing them with them, loaning them to them, having them pick up and drop off. So that's one of the things that I saw Partnership for Parks grow into doing, is to giving groups tools that we can keep as long as we continue to do events at them. And yes, Carl, I got a new one for the weekday. She's been out 7 hours this week weeding. I'm like, you can stop now, Kathleen. So we really appreciate Partnership for Parks. I also want to, give a shout out to Joe. He's been super helpful. And who we didn't mention was Kahinde Montana, PS1. He's been sending patrols on Memorial Day weekend to make sure there's no excess barbecuing in the neighborhood. But also, I think that part of it is the process for starting new groups or getting people involved is kind of nebulous. I mean, I've been helping people in 2 other parks who are interested in doing things in their parks, and some of them are rogue people that they just are going out and doing whatever they want. They don't want to form a group. So I think Sabina and Vlad, you were probably looped in with one of them who was doing Half Moon Overlook. But Sabina or Vlad, can you talk about how somebody who wanted to do something in a park that doesn't have a group would get started? Could they be an individual under Partnership for Parks? Do they need to be a group? Could they be under my group and do that park? That would be kind of helpful, because I've sort of been mentoring and coaching a bunch of people and saying I would organize events in their park, like I did for Deb. I did Leaf Crunch in Deb's park, in Julie's park, in Jacqueline's park, and so could you just kind of address that on how should I direct people that want to do things in some of the parks that don't have groups?
Yeah, I can for sure speak to that. And, thank you. It's, yes, we recognize that many people have been engaged for many more years than we've been around. So we're just happy to be here to help continue to support that vision and that effort. So I appreciate the question. So we're really here as a liaison to many things. And I think the best way to get a new group started is really to reach out to Carl or one of our other outreach coordinators and just start a conversation. I understand that sometimes people reach out to us with a very clear vision of what they want to do and how they want to get involved and what that looks like. And then some people just know they care about their park and they really don't know where to begin. And then some people call us with a concern or a challenge, and we hopefully find an opportunity to turn that into, how that person can get involved. We really love to harness that care and passion for the park and turn it into something really positive. And I guess, so the biggest thing I would say is really to be in touch with our outreach coordinators. I know that there are also just a few people. We have 3 Bronx outreach coordinators who have a really large portfolio of groups that they're supporting. So I know that their capacity can be a little stretched. But we also have other, Partnerships has grown, and Jody, you may have also seen this, develop. But Partnerships over the last few years, we've grown in size. We do have different folks on staff who also work with the outreach coordinators and provide additional support around training and coaching. So we really tried to build our internal staff network as well. And what I would say about, can you be one person? You can be one person. And sometimes it just starts with one, right? But we always really encourage people to work together with other people, just for a lot of reasons, right? Like, we really try to encourage inclusive sort of representation as like a friends group is developing. Our communities are so multifaceted and made up of so many different voices and perspectives. And so if really only one person is the person calling them friends of such and such park, you know, I think it's harder for them to, you know, capture and represent many voices. So that's one reason we really encourage at least a few people getting together. But also just for like, it's like, it takes a lot, right? I don't have to tell you that. And for anyone that's been involved in caring for their park, that's an understatement, right? So, so to have a couple of other people to lean on and kind of share the load with, we really think that's critical in sustaining, you know, engagement in any kind of park space. So those are just a couple of reasons we really want to help encourage people to get connected to a couple of other folks. It's also a great way to share best practices and like learn and grow together. So for all of these reasons, it's really something we really encourage, but it's not something you have to start out with, right? So like if you pick up the phone and you give us a call, you're not sure where to start, we can have those conversations and get people connected to others like yourself, you know, Jody, doing the work, who might have some good suggestions as well. I think it's fantastic. I'm sure it takes even more, you know, of your time and energy to help do that sort of peer support, but I think it's really invaluable. We also try to stand up networking opportunities to encourage that kind of best practice sharing, not just between us and groups, but between groups, right? And people, because you all know your neighborhood, you have the best practices in many cases, and we want to encourage that as well. So just a couple of other quick notes. We have trainings going on throughout the year. We have a horticultural training coming up in August. Our Bronx team is hard at work putting a networking get together for the Bronx, which we're hoping to have early this fall. So there are some other things coming up where people can get plugged in and kind of start to explore what it looks like to be involved with us. And I'll leave it there for now, but I'll turn it over to Carl and to Vlad if they have anything else to add.
Carl, do you want to say anything, or would you like for me to go first? But I think you should, as the outreach coordinator for this community board, I think it might be best if you add something first.
Oh yes, of course. Oh yeah, no, if there's just a party of one, that's fine. You know, just, you know, you mentioned, you know, some people are rogue, you know, just some of our stipulations are, you know, like, you know, yes, we do have training modules. Yes, we do have reporting, but it's that reporting that allows us to get the tools and, you know, to ensure safety, because, you know, part of those modules is, you know, is this a weed, is this a plant, or what to do if there's a needle? So like, you know, working with us does have some stipulations or, you know, criteria, but, you know, that's, you know, for safety. That's also so that, you know, like, you know, when these groups are forming, that they can be open to the public. And that's kind of what we're looking for. You know, if we have limited resources, as Sabina mentioned, I have many groups under my portfolio. If I just have a party of one, you know, if they're helping bring people together, then I would love to support that. But if they're just, you know, looking to just, you know, pull weeds for 7 hours by themselves, that might not necessarily be us, but, you know, that conversation should start with us.
I would argue though that, Carl, like Jerome Park Friends and Neighbors got started by, I think, mostly me pulling weeds for hours. And like, you know, that's kind of where, like, that's usually where it begins, right? Because you spend a couple of Saturdays pulling weeds, and then you realize you need a lot more friends. You're much more willing to talk to strangers.
I agree with you. I didn't mean to say it like that. I meant like, you know, there are super stewards, you know, for example, who operate because they strictly want to be independent without groups in parks. And so like that is a very different model from what the outreach coordinators are trying to cultivate. So like that was my that was my distinction, not that it doesn't start there, it does start there. But, you know, there's a pivot as to where a volunteer wants to go, whether it's an individual doing their own thing or a community group trying to foster, you know, public engagement. That's the distinction.
Yeah, and thanks, Carl. Carl hears from me way too much. And I think that part of it too is everybody has a different vision for the park, and everybody wants everything everywhere. So, and things take a long time to happen. So, you know, I like the Partnership for Parks model for groups in landscape parks. I am a super steward in the natural areas. In Shorefront Park. So I think that part of it is going through that process and getting a a stamp of approval from the Parks Department then becomes the way that, like, we still have people whacking down my plants in Henry Hudson Park because they think they're weeds. And, you know, we had somebody steal all our native plants from the tree bed at the library. So it is, you said it's hard. It's sometimes heartbreaking to be gardening in public spaces, but, you know, the training modules, I've done them all. They're really detailed, they're very helpful. And I think that that's something that, but some people are just, I think the thing that would be helpful for Partnership for Parks, in my job that I was at for 20 years and left, I work closely with Partnership for Parks and City Parks Foundation. I think the things that's missing that I end up trying to help other people with is how you manage volunteers. I think that that's a module that really hasn't been addressed with Partnership for Parks, because that's the hardest part. I told somebody today who was out in the park with me, look, it's really easy to learn what's a weed and what's not a weed, but once you get other people involved, there's a whole different dynamic to it. And there's a lot of, you know, people, oh, we want to do this, and it's conflict, and then they become rogue. So I think that that's a module that would be really helpful, is just how to organize a volunteer day, how to manage volunteers, how to deal with some of the things that come up without having to have a board and be a 501c3. So that would just be my suggestion for the next quarter century of Partnership for Parks.
Jody,
Thank
one
you.
thing I think might be helpful just at this is, and then we'll go to Bonnie, is that just explaining the difference between a super steward, a Partnership for Parks stewardship group like Thorpe Park Friends and Neighbors, Green Thumb, and probably, I think Bonnie is interested in the pickleball courts, and so there's a group that's organizing pickleball events and stuff. But what are the different boxes that folks should go, you know, direct their efforts in? Right, is that clear? Like if I'm a super steward, what is a super steward? What is a parks group? What's the difference?
Carl, do you want to talk about super stewards? And then I can kind of
sure,
cover a few of the others. Okay.
So Super Stewards is a smaller division in the natural resources group of parks, and they are limited to only deemed natural areas. And so parks that are labeled natural areas have their own different world of bureaucracy and what can and cannot be done. And so their stewards are typically single operating individuals that are trained in either tree care, coastal cleanups. There's 2 other tracks that you can choose from. And so they get like assigned, this is your native area. So like they choose the menu. And so they're given the tools and there's reporting, just, you know, like us. And so that's super stewards. And so there's only a few natural areas in the Bronx. I believe University Woods is one of them. And I think parts of Riverdale, and I believe the stewards of Ewan Park are working with the stewards to try and get parts of Ewan Park mapped as a natural landscape. And so in those parks, like you wouldn't plant daffodils or anything ornamental. It's mostly, you know, invasive removal and maintenance and support.
It's Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park is Forever Wild. Raoul Wallenberg Park, not Forest, is Forever Wild. Riverdale Park is Forever Wild. And I am a super steward, and the other track, I'm a natural areas volunteer is one track. I'm also a trail maintainer, which is the second track. I'm working on having the wetland restoration because there's capital money now. That's a third track. So I also worked with the Super Stewards program to get it expanded to landscape parks because Bruss Park has woods, Ewan Park has woods, Henry Hudson Park has woods. So Mason will be the first super steward in a natural area in a landscape park in Ewan Park. So, and then community gardens are city-owned land that is transferred to Green Thumb, where they have required open hours. and people get beds and they either garden communally or independently. And we have a Chervier Green Thumb Garden, JFK is a Green Thumb Garden, the Enchanted Garden. There's quite a few of them. That was
Community Center, I think is.
Yeah, Kingsbridge Heights Community Center. You know, in my previous job, that was who I worked with, were community gardens. Church of the Media used to have one. Spite and Duyvil Preschool has one. That's for the school only. The parents can garden there. So there's 3 different tracks, which makes it very confusing for people in the neighborhood who want to do stuff.
Bonnie, I know you've been very patient. What would you like to say?
And start video. Hi again. Now, forgive me if I'm talking about something that's already been done. First of all, I want to shout praise to Alex Rosenblum, who really has spearheaded the pickleball court initiative, which has supposedly been granted money from the capital projects. I was on a meeting, I don't know, 6 months ago or so, where I thought everything was approved for the pickleball court to take place in the old handball courts. And I don't think that has been done. Is that correct, that the pickleball court has still not been created? I just want to know for sure. I thought it has not been created yet. I'm sorry?
Hi, I can take this one. How are you?
Hi, Mike.
That is correct. That unfortunately the pickleball court has not been done yet. Just a small minor detail of clarification. We're doing this work in-house with our own parks maintenance workers, painters, and some of our heavy-duty crew. So money from an elected official has not been allocated. So that's just something that we're going to take on, and we were supposed to start it this spring. Unfortunately, we had some very unfortunate situations where all of those specialized employees, plumbers and painters and some of our heavy-duty equipment operators have been working on some very severe projects things that come up. Our restroom sewer lines, back up or collapse, and they have to dig stuff up to do that. Some of our buildings are very old and the ceiling collapsed on something. So our painters and plasters have to go and address that. So we're very sorry that this hasn't happened. One of the last projects that these team members are working on were our pools, which they were doing last minute touch-ups. Not to brag, but in the Bronx, our painters are perhaps the only borough where we go through and we try to paint all of our outdoor pools from top to bottom as much as possible. Every other borough, I don't believe, actually gets around to doing every single pool every year. We want to make sure that it stays as fresh as possible for the public. Our pool opening is tomorrow. So those painters are able to now go and focus on other projects that they've kind of been putting off, like this one. And I apologize that this hadn't happened before. They were ready to start back shortly after the last time I presented on this, where I gave the presentation and the board approved it. But we had asked them actually to start another pickleball court that we installed at Crotona Park because we wanted to meet with Mr. Rosenblum first on site, and our supervisor of mechanics who oversees our specialized crews. And I met with him on site and we spoke about the layout and everything. And they just have not been able to get back to it, unfortunately. But they're telling me that they're going to start very soon here.
Mike, thank you. Thank you very much. While I'm on this subject, and I have the attention of people from the Community Board, Parks Department, and other parks people who are interested, Partnership for Parks and other organizations, I've heard it time and time again that the tennis courts really need to be repaved, and that I personally have always felt that one pickleball court hidden away is not what we need in Riverdale, and also or Van Cortlandt Park. This is becoming such a wild sport. Everybody's wanting to do it. There's a number of private organizations that are doing it and charging a lot of money. I just happened to have been up to Tarrytown, and they've painted pickleball lines on their tennis courts at Pearson Park at Tarrytown. So again, I want to make a suggestion. I'm not behind this initiative. I'm really here to help Alex Rosenblum, who I've always been supporting. So perhaps there's a process you can reconsider Community Board Parks Department part to think about how you can bring pickleball to the Bronx community, I guess the West Bronx community, which could get together for it. One hidden away court is not really going to bring people together. It's going to be who's there, and okay, it will give some people an opportunity to play. And if it takes off, how are you going to handle one court with 40 people if they all want to play? That said, I want to say something else, which the conversation earlier about all the parks and the stewards brought to mind. More and more, I'm reading in the New York Times how getting into nature is so healthy. Getting into a park, getting into a forest, we need those breaks. But I personally am not going to go into Riverdale Park by myself, you know, and it would be, and I don't have a dog to walk to protect me either, so I walk past it sometimes. I'm just thinking, why couldn't we have some wonderful events? I don't know who could do it. You know, forest bathing, you know, organize a group to go into the park and hire somebody, or maybe a volunteer. That's a brand new idea, forest bathing, or walk in the park, or picnics in the parks. I mean, I think there's a lot of people here. Yes, the senior centers do a lot for the seniors, but there are really creative opportunities that we can have with health initiatives to get people into the parks with healthy activities. I don't know how you would do it. I don't know who would take charge, but I'm saying I would love it if one day I saw a list of maybe, you know, some walk in the park, or forest bathing, as I mentioned, or sound healing. I'm going up to the the Rockefeller State Preserve for a forest healing, and they have, I guess it's the Friends of Rockefeller Park is putting that on. So that's helpful when you have the friends, but you have the Partnership for Parks, it seems, who could start working on, you know, creative activities to bring people together and introduce people to each other who are new to the community. Yes, so I think that's it.
What I'm hearing is a volunteer who should be working with Carl to organize some forest bathing events in a park near us. Is what
I'll
I'm hearing.
do that. One event I can help.
This is how it's going to work. This was me like 7 years ago. So we should connect you to Carl, and then we can get you going. Yeah.
Yeah,
and
the
if
other
there's
thing,
another park that you're interested in, there may already be an active group, and we can connect you with them. But that this is exactly the kind of thing that any active group would love, is a person who says, I think that there should be this thing. Forest bathing is wonderful. And then it's just a poster away. You know, you put up a poster and you show up on a Saturday, and then there's forest bathing. And that's what's wonderful about it. You know?
Well, I just cleared trails in Spuyten Duyvil Shorefront Park at the Metro North Station. You're welcome. I will even promote it for you if you want to lead a tour.
Place. That's a good place. Yeah. Again, I don't feel comfortable even walking in that park alone. But with that sounds really good. And I probably have another thought that just left my mind about, you know, how about, you know, posters are great. But is there a way we could connect with each other through WhatsApp? Because that seems to be the way people are connecting a lot. And so, you know, let's say for getting together for a hike or a walk or a forest bathing or a sound healing. So I don't know if that's the possibility, even for finding a friend for pickleball. You know, you need a partner for pickleball, or tennis. So I've always wondered.
The board office uses Facebook. It's traditional. There's a big Facebook group, a Riverdale Facebook group. There's 2 or 3 rival Facebook groups. So I'm sure you can find some good Riverdale organizing there.
Yeah. Nextdoor seems to be what I see Nextdoor mostly. I mean, I don't read it. It's so many complaints and problems on Nextdoor. I don't see it as a community connection group yet. Anyway, I don't want to take up time. It's been late and I'm going to eat my dinner, but thank you for listening. And really, this is Alex. I'm substituting for Alex tonight, but I did have my own ideas about this connecting with people. So thank you. And I look forward to get Carl's email.
I look forward to some forest bathing. So
thank you.
I think that's
Take
it
care.
For questions. Oh, Carl, did you have a question? Or you your hand up?
Oh, I was just waving goodbye, and I look forward to working with you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Carl,
bye.
Okay, that'll be wonderful. Yeah, so I want to thank all of the folks for Partnership for Parks. Before you go, though, I know Christina Taylor and Stephanie Ehrlich are on the call. For folks who, would like to volunteer but don't want to start their own group or don't want to host an event, there's opportunities in Van Cortlandt Park. Stephanie and Christina, are you still there?
Yes, still here. I'm happy to talk about volunteer opportunities. So we have a lot of program. I actually just sent out a second email today about it because I forgot one event because we have so many happening this upcoming month in July. So our next Wednesday, we'll have a general park cleanup. Just because it's right after July 4th, which is a big trash day for the park. So asking volunteers to come out and join us on Wednesday morning to help pick up trash. But then the rest of the Wednesdays, we're doing our Water Chestnut Wednesdays. We had a group out there today and they had a great time. You get to put on a pair of waders and hop in the mill pond and help us remove water chestnut because it's taking over, but we're gonna win. Slowly but surely, we're gonna win. Fridays, we have Forest Restoration Fridays. We meet every Friday morning, and then our weekend volunteer event is Saturday, July 22nd, and that will be over on the other side of the park in Woodlawn. We're going to do something in the Northeast Woods. But yeah, check out our calendar of events, going to vancortlandt.org, then click on calendar events, and all of the volunteer events are up there. And while I have you, I'm just going to plug a couple other things because we have movies this summer coming up. So that's exciting. So we have movies in the park, on the parade ground, starting the second Tuesday of July, going for 5 weeks in a row. This year's theme is outer space. So we have some really fun movies. We set up early. So we have crafts and music before the movie. That's also up on our website.
And music. We also have music up on the website as well.
Yes.
Lots of free music programs happening in July, August, and September. Go to our website. You'll see all those programs. And one of the most exciting things about the movies is that we're doing original Star Wars, now known as Episode 4, on July 25th. And I'm hearing that people are coming in costume. It is going to be very, very fun.
Oh, nice. I know that the Forever Wild came up a few minutes ago, and Stephanie, I saw you pop on. Van Cortlandt Park has Forever Wild spaces as well. Do you ever do volunteer events there?
Yes, Christina, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, pretty much almost all of our volunteer events are in Forever Wild locations. But yeah, our Forest Fridays are in Forever Wild. The Woodlawn Volunteer Day is there. And we do also have our Vital Volunteer program. So we have two groups of Vital Volunteers. We have those that remove trash, and then we also have those that are trail maintainers, and the trail maintainers are part of the Super Stewards program. So we work with Natural Areas Conservancy on that. And if anyone is interested in becoming a Vital Volunteer and volunteering more often, volunteering in the Forever Forest areas, let me know and we can get you going.
Well, can they find additional information also about that on Van Cortlandt Park Alliance's website?
Yes, we do have information about the Vital Volunteers. So for that, we do ask that you first come to one of our general open volunteer days so we can get to know you a little bit and make sure that it's something that the volunteers, interested in. And then there are some trainings that have to be done first, but they're nothing, super intensive, but we do have a few trainings that you have to do. And then you can get the permit to do the volunteer work.
Cool. And then I think the last thing I've got in my notes is access to water. This is something that's come up on this committee a lot. It's just getting access to water the plants. We have to pay for a permit to open a hydrant. And so, Jody, I am at a park that is lucky that it has watering infrastructure. Jody, have you gotten your watering infrastructure squared away?
So,
do you have watering issues?
Yes, I have watering issues, and I just, like I said, I have a very different perspective than many other people. I'm saying like, oh my gosh, how amazing that the pickleball is happening in within a year. I have been waiting for 3 years in Henry Hudson Park to have our water fixed, and that we added it to the capital project for fiscal year 25. It was a lower priority. What Mike mentioned, the plumbers have just been busy elsewhere with more higher priority things. So we do not plant in Henry Hudson Park because we can't keep those plants alive. All my volunteers hold 100 gallons of water in 1-gallon jugs, 2/10 of a mile back and forth. So they said, we're not watering this year. I did make progress with Effie at DEP. So she did allow me to fill out the hydrant permit and got agreed to waive the fee for me, but I have to actually purchase a vacuum breaker so that the water doesn't backflow, and then put the model number on that permit. So I was just waiting for Dan to physically have it. So we did do that for Henry Hudson Park. I didn't want to ask her for all parks, but we would have the fire department open those hydrants for us because there's too many apartment buildings and I don't want to be messing with the pressure. So, so that's the progress that we made. I have been emailing Joe and Kahinde Montana, PS1 Montana, but I guess the plumbers just aren't available to come check if the Bruckner box needs to be turned on. I think a valve is turned off and that the plumbers have to come and see if they could turn the valve on for me.
So Jody, I'm here. It's Joe Mangieri.
Oh, hi, Joe.
How you doing, Jody? I'm on the call. So,
good.
Real quick, Water Solutions. Jody, don't kill me, but I kind of got one for Ewan. It was a little easier, Jody. The reason being that it's not just a simple Bruckner valve issue. It's and I really can't get a great answer. Effie's been like helpful, but I tried to reach out to her and say like, listen, when was the last time you gave a street permit for construction? So what our supervisor of mechanics thinks happened is that our water was actually capped to that Bruckner box because there was a leak, and it's like more of a, like, we would have to, it's capital money. You'd have to dig from the street. It's kind of like a big project. What I am going to do, Jody, because it seems like this is working, is that if I could find another water fountain that we have laying around somewhere and connect something, we'll be able to connect the hose. I actually sent an email to Ewan Park today, to everybody in the email of Ewan, where we were able to come to a solution. But it's not that the plumbers aren't trying to turn it on. It's more of like it's like a break that would cost a lot of money to dig up to the street.
Yeah, that's why I did put it in the capital request list.
Yeah.
And I know Dan had tried for 2 years for that, so I've only been trying for 1 year. So there's no water fountain down on that end of the park. Yeah. That's what our issue is there's no water fountain. And I'm just not comfortable stringing hoses from Paul's Park across the street to that end of the park.
Yeah, no, that's too much.
Yeah, so, no, I mean, I know you guys, I know you read my emails. I know that you guys are working on things. I guess I'm just a little more tolerant since I've been doing, advocating for more than 1% for parks for 25 years. So I know that you just don't have personnel or equipment or money to do a lot of these things. So everybody on the call, make sure you call your council member and tell him, please fund parks and natural areas. The budget is going to be approved soon, or maybe it'll be late and we have more time. We're trying to get you the resources you need, to all of you on the Parks Department. We appreciate how hard you work without all the things you need to do the job that is in front of you. So thank you. I have no complaints about you. I complain about other things, but not you guys. So thanks.
Thanks, Joey.
Thank you, Jody. Yeah, thank you, Joe. And with that, I think it's a good point to end on our volunteering in the park. And we want to just thank all of the folks from Partnership for Parks and Banquoil Park Alliance and the Parks Department for just coming on and, and talking a little bit about how we can be involved. Volunteers are just super important in our parks. As Jody was describing, the Parks Department is underfunded, and New Yorkers for Parks is fighting to get 1% of the city budget allocated to the Parks Department. It's barely half of that right now, and always at risk of being cut. So if you see a park that is outside of Van Cortlandt Park, but if you see a local community park that is really well cared for, and if it has perennials and plantings, there's probably a volunteer group that is attached to it that is doing all of that maintenance of those perennials. And so, support Partnership for Parks, but also if you want to support parks funding, check out New Yorkers for Parks website. So thank you all for coming on the call tonight. I want to switch over to just the kind of the last item on our agenda tonight, which is just getting an update on the capital projects that are in our district. Mike, do you want to do that, or Catherine?
I'll be doing that, Deb.
All right, very good. So where do you want to start?
So I will start with the completed projects. So the first one I have is the Van Cortlandt Park Indian Fields ball fields reconstruction. This project was completed in May of 2022. The second one is the Woodlawn Playground spray shower reconstruction. This one was completed in September of 2022.
Want me to give you the ones I'm curious about?
Sure.
I can pepper you with the ones I'm wondering about. Bailey Playground restroom.
Bailey.
It was supposed to start construction. It hasn't been roped off yet. It was supposed to start construction about 2 months ago.
Give me a second. Let me see. Let me look at my list.
Been on the list since about 1980. Like literally.
Literally, yes.
That's when it burnt down. If you want to go to the next one,
I don't have that one on my list, but I will follow up with Citywide Services on my end and find out the status on that one. That's
how about the classic playground?
So the classic playground, it is construction is anticipated to begin in July of this year. And it is on schedule to be completed by July 2024.
About a year.
Yeah.
It starts.
If everything goes good and it starts in July. I'll let you know as soon as.
Strong Street Playground.
Strong Street Playground. That's.
That one, we approved it at the same time we approved Classic Playground. Is that starting July 2?
Give me a second. So this one is in procurement. It's in the beginning phase of procurement, and right now we're pending legal reviews.
Yeah, Bob's point, when I realized I made a mistake. Four restroom is the one I was asking about. I know Bailey Playground restroom roof is on the list for capital projects.
Yes.
That one I think has been on there longer. So I was just conflating them. So the four restroom is the one that's been on the list since the 80s.
So this one is the Washington Walk Fort Ford Playground.
Walk / Fort Ford. Yep, that's it.
Yeah, this one is in construction and it's on schedule to be completed by October 2024.
When you say in construction, it was supposed to be like the roped off like a few months ago. I don't think anything has started yet, unless it started in the last week or so. Is it construction has actually started?
If you're saying that, then I'll go out and check.
I haven't walked down there in a week or so, but I haven't seen anything.
Is Washington's Walk the one that's right by the reservoir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was there yesterday. I didn't see any ropes. Like I ran through it.
Okay.
I was there yesterday, I didn't see
There's
anything.
nothing. Okay. Yeah.
It was the big sign.
Right. Yeah. So nothing seems to have started yet in Fort 4.
Okay, I'll look into it and I'll give you an update.
That would be great. And then, do you have the Bailey Playground restroom roof on your list?
No, I
I didn't
don't.
know about that one, but I was happy to see anything in Bailey Playground.
Yeah, it's being done by Citywide Services, so I'll check in with them regarding that as well.
And then I know that the Van Cortlandt Greenhouse construction has already started, right? When is that supposed to be done?
It's scheduled to be completed by January of 2025.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
25, all right. And then I know the You and Adult Fitness, we've been joking about it a little bit tonight.
Yes, we have. So this project was completed. We are coordinating with the contractors to take down the fencing. And we are hoping that we do that in the next couple of days, but I will let you know the exact date when the fence is coming down.
So is there going to be a ribbon cutting?
No, there won't be any ribbon cutting for this project.
Aw. What about the Seton Park Adult Fitness and Skate Park? We approved that a while ago. I would assume it's outside of procurement by now?
Yes, it is. So it is, construction is anticipated to begin in July of this year. And the completion date that we have is July 2024.
July 24?
Mm-hmm.
You got to get that one built before bouldering isn't a thing anymore. What about, so the Ewan Park staircase, is that in procurement?
So the Ewan Park staircase is in design.
Oh, it's still design, okay.
Yeah. The design is scheduled to be, excuse me?
Yeah.
The design is
Will you be bringing it
scheduled to
back
be
for
completed
final
by,
design approval?
what was that? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I feel like we're accidentally crossing each
Yeah.
other. I think we approved a preliminary design for the Ewan Park staircase. Will you be bringing it back to the board to the committee for a final approval of design?
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that'll be interesting.
When will that happen? When will the final design be presented?
Sorry, no final design will be presented. But their work, the design is still scheduled to be completed by July of 2023.
July 23?
The design.
July of this year, 2023. Yes.
The design,
For the design.
Yeah.
And then so that I would expect it's about 14 months for procurement from that date?
Yes.
And another 14 months for construction?
Yes. So the procurement would be about like 7 to 10 months. And then
7 to 10 months?
7 to 10 months, yes, for procurement.
Really?
That's
Mhm.
amazingly short. Wow, you guys are doing great.
Yeah, it's usually, I think they say 14 months. Then, what about the Tibbetts Tail fence? I know that there was budget that was allocated for putting the fence up so that community groups could have access to that area again.
So that's also Citywide Services. And
Citywide Services.
Yeah, I'll put that on my list to follow up on.
Okay. That makes sense. And then finally, Van Cortlandt has ADA access.
Which one was that, Deb?
It was access, ADA access to Van Cortlandt House in Van Cortlandt Park. That there's some steps or something they need to do in order to make it more
the Van
accessible
Cortlandt
to
House
visitors.
Museum reconstruction.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is in the design phase. And they're still
Design.
working on, they're working on a schedule they're still working on determining a schedule for that one. But it's in the design phase right now.
It's early design.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions about any capital things? Joe, your hand is already up from before, right? Naftali, the floor is yours.
It's still up. Let me take it down. Sorry about that.
Naftali, you're on mute.
Hi, forgive me, I've joined the meeting a little late, but can somebody brief a little bit more about the stairs at Ewan Park? I understood there was a $4 million budget. Things have gone a different way. They're different design, concrete instead of slate stones. Can somebody sort of sum it up and say what the status on this is?
Okay.
Hi, we held a community input meeting for this project some time ago. It was funded, I believe, the last fiscal year, and we had a community input meeting. We had a lot of input meetings for it. We presented it to the board sometime earlier this spring, right, or in the fall, and it was approved by the board. We haven't changed the design since. The materials that we presented at the time, I believe they were concrete steps. That's what we're going with. We haven't changed that design.
And
no?
But Mike, there's stone on the sides of it, correct?
I think so. Forgive me. I don't have it in front of me. I can try to dig it up. I'm sorry.
Naftali, maybe what you can do is reach out to Catherine, and she can send you the plans that we approved, because it was a pretty nice staircase that we approved in the fall. So that way you can get a picture of exactly what was approved, where that design is. That might be helpful. And then she can answer any other detailed questions.
Were there any, as far as you know, were there any materials have changed? The design, something with the budget have shifted radically, or everything is according to plan?
We're at.
Mike, were there any changes to the stairs that we approved?
I don't think there were any changes to the stairs since it was approved. We would come back to the board if that were the case. I'm sorry, I'm looking for the presentation now. I'm sorry.
Remember too, the initial design was pending an engineering discovery period, so they didn't know like how wide it had to be in the wall support. So it was approved. Caveat that it may need to change after they did that.
Maybe a little wider, a little deeper, a little higher. Yeah, I remember that.
That could have changed, but I don't think anything.
I thought the materials should be staying the same. The aesthetics.
Yeah. And I think initially we had an early meeting and it was like over the top. It was going to be the whole length of the stairs, and then they realized the budget, and it did get compressed into just the top, whatever, 20 or 30 stairs. So there were two versions presented, and the first one was much more ambitious. Back. There could be a discrepancy there too.
Yes, and Naftali, I would recommend talking to Catherine so you can get the details specifically about this plan.
Catherine?
Deb, isn't the presentation on the website? The community board's website?
It should be.
I don't have the
remember
presentation.
Which minutes it would be included in. Bob,
September.
September? Yes, if you check the Parks Committee meeting minutes for September or October, the plan should be in there.
Mike is trying to look for the presentation.
Do you have another question, Naftali?
No, things would sort of get cleared up, but basically you're saying go investigate. I thought more people knew more about it, so it was sort of clearer.
I think what the consensus is that there was a plan that was presented to the committee in September, October, and that plan is still what's in effect and is being finalized. So that plan, it's different from the first plan, but it's still a pretty nice staircase. So what I would suggest is if you have, like, if you don't know which one, the changes are, I would look and see what the actual plan is now. And if you have any concerns, you can always reach out to the board office, or I'm sure Catherine can also answer them, so that everybody kind of knows what to expect. It's a really, I thought it was a very beautiful staircase. I thought it was going to look really nice. So, yeah. But definitely, you get the plan so you can see it, and you should be able to pull it up tonight online too if you want to go digging in our Parks Committee minutes. It should be there. Good. Jody, do you have actually, Jody, I'm going to skip you for a second unless you're talking about the Ewan Stairs, because I bet Melba's talking about the Ewan Stairs.
No, not Ewan Stairs.
Okay?
Oh, yeah, actually, I can update everyone with what I have found out, because I've been just trying to get some answers on this as well, because it's a really big project. It's historically significant. And it's also, it's a major expenditure. So again, Mike, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that there was a absolutely beautiful design that was it was shared with the community. And that was the sort of one-time community gets to take a look, the one shot at feedback. And then what happened more recently was that the shape of the stairs remained roughly the same. There's a couple feet here and there. You probably wonder why I'm so obsessed with granite stairs. Well, I've lived a lot of my life in upstate New York, and my husband's an engineer. So we looked at this new plan that came out about a month ago. It says final plan on it, and it was reviewed and approved by the Design Commission. So the shape of the stairs did change, as Julie pointed out, a couple feet here and there, but there was a major shift, two really big shifts. One was that the original plan called for granite treads. So again, granite is the gold standard in landscaping projects, not precast cement. The new plan calls for the granite treads to be replaced with precast concrete treads. So again, if you know anything about how concrete works, it's porous, whereas granite is not. So concrete stairs are prone, they're a lot less durable, because during freeze-thaw cycles, they tend to absorb water. And then when things get cold, that water has nothing to do but expand. And so if you take a look, just, this is a kind of common sense thing, but if you look at things like old granite stairs, and actually the north staircase is actually granite treads in Ewan Park. Granite lasts forever. And so there was a major shift in the stairs of durability and aesthetic appearance and historical appropriateness when granite treads were replaced with precast concrete. The other major change was that the slope and the erosion control called for actually boulders, which again is a gold standard. That slope is really, really steep. I know I've picked up garbage there, so it's pretty intense. The boulders have been replaced with soft mesh or coir logs. And again, that's not necessarily the best use of soft coir logs. So I think the long story short is that these are one could split hairs and say, okay, it's not a design change necessarily, but it's a major shift in materials. The other reality is we're hearing a lot about how hard it is to get labor into the parks, and operational costs are really high. The reality is you pay a little bit more up front for granite slabs for the treads, and even landings would be better. And you don't have to pay for maintenance after that. So if we really have a cost problem, and we have actually a generous budget, 4 million is a huge budget for something that's this relatively not so large. But if we want to really keep it cost effective, we should use granite as much as we can, because the upfront cost is really not that much less than hollow precast concrete slabs and landings and seating areas that are simply just not going to last in the same way and need to be patched and patched and patched. So it's not only aesthetically not so pleasant, but it actually requires more labor and a higher cost overall.
I'm going to stop you just to let Mike respond to. Have there been changes since the plan that we approved in September, October?
Yeah.
Where the treads have been replaced?
She sent this to me, and it.
Mike can answer. Mike, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time finding the presentation on my end. our system is doing some kind of weird update. We can send you the design that was presented by the commission as well as what was presented by the board. So just an FYI, there are times that we do go to the board for an approval, then the public represents it to the Public Design Commission. They ask us for changes, and of course, the Public Design Commission has ultimate approval over whatever it is that we, that goes into the public property. So that may be it. It may be, if there was a change, if it was a drastic change, we would of course come back. But I don't know. I don't know that there was a change, and forgive me for not being able to pull up the presentation at the moment. But we're gonna follow up with this and get back to the board on this ASAP. I'm so sorry. It's kind of embarrassing.
The final version of the plan right now, and then Melba, if you can contact the board office. And Julie, we've already got your email.
I can forward you all this.
Okay.
Melba forwarded it to me.
We can loop you guys in. We can just follow up and see what's going on with the plan that we approved. So it's the boulders and that have been changed to logs.
It's
immediately.
COIR. You can quar logs, and then granite stair treads have been replaced by precast concrete. And then there were some changes in the plantings that Julie's been on top of and knows about. She's had the chance to look at those.
There'll be changes in the plantings when those plantings get stolen. So we'll be always
die from lack of water.
Die from lack of water, all the things. But some of them will thrive, and it'll be very, very. It'll feel good. So thank you, Melba, for raising that. M. Bykowski.
Yes, I, like Naftali, live at the top of the stairs, 17 years. And have gone up and down them many times. And if they put in different materials, also the stairs should be wider. They're not that wide, but if they put in different materials, it's going to deteriorate and we'll have more problems over the years. And if it's taken this long to replace the top of the stairs, which has been many, many years, then we better look into, do these design people ever walk up those stairs? All 160 at one time, and have seen them. So they have to put in the granite, and they better the boulders and everything. And are they going to do anything about the stairs at the north end? $4 million is a lot of money.
Stairs?
Yeah, $4 million is a lot of money for 31 steps.
There's nothing, Mike, there's nothing planned for the other stairs, right?
No.
Yeah, so this brings us back to the capital projects, like in the way one advocates for capital projects, which is, going to your elected official, a council member, Ninowitz, and, advocating for the second set of stairs, because he's the one who will be paying for it. The Parks Department doesn't have standing capital money. Also come back here to the Parks Committee in February, when we are putting together our list of capital projects. We set priorities, which also kind of is just another voice advocating for different projects. So we totally encourage you to come back, and we'll send out lists to certainly the Friends of UM Park, so that you know about when we're doing that.
Yes, thank you. I hope they reconsider.
Thank you for coming on tonight. I know it's getting late, so thank you for that. Jody, you want to close us out? You still got your hand up?
Sorry, that's from before.
Okay, good. Okay. Well, so then I think we have reached the end of the agenda. Thank you so much, Mike. And the third item. Yeah. What?
Okay, we still have old and new business.
Yeah, old and new business. Yeah.
Excellent.
But so thank you so much for Mike and Catherine for coming on and giving us the update. And then I will move on to old business. Only old business I have, I just wanted to update the committee. The request for proposals for Mosholu Golf Course has been released. It's a 1-2-year term. All RFP questions should be directed to Barbara Huang, the project manager. And she's barbara.huang@parks.nyc.gov. And the proposals are due by Friday, July 21st at 3 p.m. Any other old business?
Wait, Deb.
Yeah.
two-year term,
Yeah, we're gonna do 1 2-year term so that they can complete the construction and get all the
okay,
permits.
Construction, okay.
And then they're gonna do the longer 20-year term.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That it helps us a lot too, because then we can provide feedback, on the actual, well, you can see what happens with the driving range, the fencing and all that, so.
Good.
Habitual question, wood chips in Ewan Park. There was a dog run that never happened. Promised many times.
So are you working with Carl on that, or
No,
Joe?
Joe was supposed to drop them off months and months ago. Wasn't there?
Joe, are you still on the call?
Yeah, we
There
can't
he
use
is.
them in the dog run.
Hey, Joe?
Yeah.
We use them on the trees.
I know.
So the Ewan Park Dog Run, needs some chips.
Yes,
You're the
we will.
chip daddy.
We will. So we don't want to dump a ton of chips. That, I mean, I'm not doubting
Last year it worked.
that the group can handle chips and spread chips, but that is a large area to chip. So
Yeah, you did it last year.
we had issues with our tool cat, which is basically a bobcat but on 4 wheels and not tracks. It was out for a year. We got it back about 2 weeks ago, I want to say. So we will dump the chips, but we will also, Allison is in contact with the person who's requesting them. I don't have the name right now, but we will set it up where we could have the tool cat there placing them, and then they could be raked out. We're talking about like a container full of chips to do that. The last time we did that dog run, we actually took down the fence and had multiple pieces of large equipment to place wood chips. Oh no,
Last year you guys dumped it near the dog park.
No, that was
and
seeding.
I and
That
a
was
couple other people spread them.
I'm sorry. I was
We
just
did it ourselves.
no. I was just confusing Seton and Ewan.
I see.
I'm sorry. I got 3 dog runs in District 8 because that's the one that's in the worst condition. Let me talk to Allison and try to get a load there, and I'm going to do the same thing with the tool cat to help you guys out. Try to give us like 2 weeks.
Okay. 2 weeks to talk to Allison, or 2 weeks to deliver the?
No, 2 weeks.
chips?
2 weeks to get the whole thing rolling.
Okay.
Yeah, no, not 2 weeks. I'll talk to Allison tomorrow about it. Okay. That was good, Deb.
Well, you know, putting it on the list. I don't know how long your list is.
No, I'll talk to her.
Ramdad has a question.
Ramdad, what's happening?
Fort Independence trees. Oh, Fort Independence trees.
Yeah.
I know that like.
Oh, no, trees.
You mean around the reservoir?
Right. Yeah.
The reservoir trees?
I saw an email with Tyler on it, correct? You guys were in contact with Tyler?
Is Tyler still with forestry?
Yeah.
I don't think we have a recent update in terms of when they're going to do the work. It seems like the budget has been moving around. There is money allocated for the park, in the park land around the reservoir, but that just got pushed to 2024. But I don't know what the update is with the trees, but I can ask Tyler.
As I recall, we were told that these trees were diseased and that they need to come down. I mean, that if that's true, this isn't something that can be put off indefinitely, because at some point those trees will come down on their own if they really are diseased and they need to come down.
I think what the rumor I had heard last was that when they decide that the trees need to come down, it's like this estimation of will the tree have substantial, come down on its own within the next 5 years. And so what they had, and mostly that's about wind hitting the branches and that's causing a pressure that would cause the tree to come down. And so one of their other options is to thin the canopy so that there's less wind pressure. And I thought because of budget issues and the size of these trees, that they were considering, and they're all oaks, basically, and that oaks normally or naturally, according to Tyler, like in nature, they would fall, all the limbs would fall off on their own over the course of about 100 years, and that's how an oak would die. And so that it sounded like they were kind of maybe backing off from taking down, they have taken down a few trees, but backing off from taking down so many, and we're going to try to thin the canopy for the next couple of years instead. But I can get an update from Tyler of where things stand. I know that there's been like maybe 2 or 3 trees that have come down, but they've been scattered and there's been very little pushback. Nobody's mentioned anything. Yeah. Other questions?
Yep.
David?
Yes, Mike, 2 separate things. One, well, I mean, and both based on the fact that this is our last meeting of the fiscal year. We won't be meeting again until September. One, is Jasenia planning on doing a budget review in August like we've done in years gone by? And then I'll have another question after that.
Yes, that is still the plan.
Okay, good. That's great. Then the 3 items that you I've talked about with you all winter, really, and spring. The Independence Avenue in front of Wave Hill, Palisade Avenue at the pumping station, and then Palisade Avenue at the bend by Half Moon Overlook. And have you talked to DOT about that element? We'll take it in reverse order. Have you talked to DOT
Sure,
about?
yes. I spoke to DOT about it. They were going to look into it. You know, they said it was very hard for them to put in a curb without having a place for the water to drain or something. I'm actually not quite sure what they were going to look into, but they did say they were going to look into it. I spoke to a former acting borough commissioner, Kyle, about it.
That's also part of Forever Wild Shorefront Park, that turn.
No, not Shorefront. This is above on Palisade Avenue, across from Half Moon.
Yes,
Mike,
that's that's Shorefront Park. That is mapped to Shorefront Park.
Okay, okay. Mike, you were going to look into the possibility of just placing cobblestones in lieu of a curb.
No.
Hey, Joe, we can get back to you on that, David.
Okay.
I know that some conversations were had.
Moving back north. Okay. I'd definitely like to have final answers on these by September. So moving back north, Palisade Avenue, the 232 pumping station, 234 pumping station, and the work that needs to be done on basically the pathway there and the fencing, et cetera, et cetera. You and I did that walkthrough.
I spoke
Mike,
to our. I'm sorry?
That's already, there's a plan already for that.
Well, I'm asking, what is that plan?
No, we already know what that plan is. It went through E&S, Environment and Sanitation, saw the landscaping plan for that. And that the Parks Department is going to be working on it when they finish with the pumping station, right? That they'll just be installing.
Well, that's what I'm asking about. What is Parks going to, this is what the discussion I've had with Mike, okay, about what is Parks going to do about their part of it. So I'm asking Mike.
I'm saying right now, David, you've asked this question a couple of times already.
That's right.
And the E&S committee has already approved this plan. Like if you go look at the minutes, you'll be able to see it. So we can have the board just pull it for you.
E&S has a plan for what they're going to do at the pumping station.
Well, there also was landscaping. It's very minimal. It's just restoring some grass and putting in some shrubs. I mean, it's just the basic kind of landscaping plot. So that's what that is.
Fine, that's in front of the pumping station at 234th Street. Yeah. What I've been talking about with Mike, and then what I've asked him about here, if you'd let him answer, is what are they going to be doing with the pathway and the fencing going all the way down to 232? Mike, is there any progress on that front?
So we looked at it. I spoke to the team that is coordinating with the contractor for the pump house. And they're absolutely right. They're just going to restore it to what was there before. As I've had other people look at the improvements to the fence and to the path, and it will need capital monies.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the tail end of that, Mike.
It will need capital monies in order to have it reconstructed, to make the fence.
Okay, and so you have no plans for the gaps under the fences then?
No, it'll be somewhat addressed by the operations team as they continue. But as you know, it's a very challenging site because it is washing off. So in the meantime, there is no plans.
So you just to interrupt for a sec. So you're talking about the pathway that is between the wooden fencing adjacent to the Riverdale Park?
Wooden railing, the low railing you're referring to, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
That's what you're talking about. Okay.
Between the railing and the fence, the chain link fence to the Riverdale Park.
Right.
Okay. There's huge deterioration. There's gaps as deep as 18.
What it sounds like is we need to include it in our capital discussion when we do budget priorities in January. Discuss it.
Or TNT does.
Or TNT does, yeah. It's
Well,
probably a parks project.
And Mike, finally, all the way north, you were looking into the Wave Hill Independence Avenue gully.
The gully is owned by Wave Hill. I mean, it's a parks property. It is managed by Wave Hill. Wave Hill takes full responsibility for it. Wave Hill would love to have additional funding, capital funding for it, and then they would take on that project.
Thank you. I believe you were included in that same email where they mentioned all of that as well.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike, could you repeat that? I couldn't hear you.
There was an email from the board and with Wave Hill included. I thought you were on that as well. So that's why I did not follow up. I thought you were on that email where they took responsibility for it. They did say that they're looking for additional funding to have that addressed.
Thank you, Mike.
Jody, did you have something?
And again, as for the area above, across the street from the Spike and Dival, the turn that we're talking about with the cobblestone, yeah. Again, I spoke to DLT. DLT said they were going to look into it. We do see it as a DOT issue. We thought about maybe putting cobblestones or something, but Joe was taking a look at it with our operations team, and we don't think that'll work either because we think cobblestone would just wash out. So unless like the street gets reconstructed or serious upgrades happen, we're not sure what else. That's why we kind of put it on DOT's court, and they were looking into it.
Okay, so you're waiting to hear back from DOT about how to handle it?
Yes.
Okay.
Jody, did you have something?
Yes, I've been waiting patiently. The old business Shorefront Park update. We have cleared the entire length of the perimeter trail between the pedestrian overpass and the bridge, and have received Parks permission to continue to clear invasives along the pond edge so that you'll have a better view of it. It is, someone said that they were concerned about being in Shorefront Park alone. It now is more visually open. And I just wanted to thank Parks for chipping that giant pile that we had compiled in November of about 8 feet tall of dead limbs and dead trees. So that got chipped. And thank you for your quick response on that 80-foot tree that fell across the path in front of the houses. So, you guys turned that around really fast. So I would like to I invited half of you at the Greenway meeting, but I'll invite you as the Parks Committee. I'd like to invite you to City of Water Day on July 15th. From 10 to 12, we will be continuing our habitat and trail restoration project. So it'll be some hands-on volunteering. And then from 12 to 12:30, 12:45, we will have a walk and talk about the work we've done, the plans for the park. And then all participants are invited to get on Metro North with us to go to Roberto Clemente State Park, where Bronx Council for Environmental Quality and the Harlem River Working Group and a group from Mill Pond will get together and talk about the projects that they did that day. City of Water Day is sponsored by the Harbor Estuary Program. So it's a, things are happening. We are the only project in Community Board 8. So we are the only projects on the Harlem River in the Bronx. So I hope you can join us. You can see some of the great things that we've done. There's some amazing volunteers that have put hours into that park, and Parks Department has really also stepped up to support us by chipping and providing, you know, taking down trees and limbs and things like that. So we appreciate all that work. And hopefully we'll be able to take some of the construction fencing down because the contractors are behaving now. So that's my old and new business on a happy note.
Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. Any new business, other new business? None? Seeing as there's none, the next meeting of the Parks Committee will be in September. A date will be announced over the summer. We will probably be discussing the Van Cortlandt Stable concession to provide feedback to the concession unit ahead of the RFP being released for that. So if you want to go for a little horsey ride sometime this summer, this is the summer to do it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second? So moved. All right. We completed our first hybrid meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Second hybrid meeting, wasn't that
Thank
one
you.
in May also hybrid?
Bye.
Or not really?
Good night, everybody.
Good night.